bit bigger chapstick that you buy at the store and put scent in it. This one's garlic, and this one's actually Anson. They're supposed to mimic shad type, but it'll stay on your lure for a long period of time. I used one when Kevin Van Dam's got one of, this is one of his companies. He sent me a whole box of this stuff. I used it all year for bass fishing and vertical jigging, and I didn't even go through one tube. This stuff lasts forever. I mean, again, money conscious. I mean, that is a good product. So it's something that if you haven't seen it out there in the industry, hopefully Joel will start carrying this stuff. But they do have a website. It's like fishsticks.com, and you can buy the stuff right off the internet. These rod socks, again, pretty sweet. You walleye guys or whatnot, stick them in there. What happens, on some of our bigger boats, you have a rod tubes that we put them underneath our seats. You go to slide that in, you're hitting these guides, and you'll bust one of them bad boys out. Boy, it makes me mad because it's usually always my best rod when I do that. So again, these rod socks, they're like $5. They're very cheap and inexpensive in there. Let me see where we're at here. So we covered depth of water. We kind of talked a little bit about location south of these rivers because that's where they're getting ready to spawn or run up the river, so they'll pre-stage there. In the fall, it's no different. Those salmon will stage south of the Black River before they start running up Black River and spawn up Mill Creek, etc. Let me see. On your locations, you have inside. When I talk to a lot of my pros that are coming up here to St. Clair River, and they go, "Gosh, Todd, how the heck do you find all these fish?" I look at St. Clair River like a trout stream. Inside bend, outside bend. Where are the drop-offs? So when I'm cruising my boat down that river 75, 80 mile an hour, I can tell right away that boat dock sticks out there 20 feet before the end of that dock. Well, as you're aware, a lot of you guys, the end of that dock's where the drop-off is. Where our other docks down further will be 4 feet or 6 feet offshore. That gives you an idea, if you didn't have the mapping and etc., of where these drop-offs are on inside and outside bends of the river. These fish don't want to sit in that cold water and fight that current all day if they don't have to. So they're going to use the example of Malta Black River, you guys that are from this area, that goes by that waste treatment plant. That current heads right over to the Canadian side, over by that Esso plant, makes an abrupt turn underwater, the current flow. I mean, obviously there's still current at the Malta Black River, but not like out beyond the turn of the river. It's a lot more stronger. And as you're aware, again, local guys, you get in front of Malta Black River, that's just a big eddy. That water's just swirling in there. So I want to find those spots, particular spots of where they're located. And once you do that and put a waypoint in there, I'll beat them up. I'll catch them and get our limit and be in and out of there. I think the best I did, a 3-man limit last year, was about, and that's leaving the Malta Black River and being back, I think it was like 23 minutes we caught. 3-man limit. I mean, that's just like some of the drifts, like when I filmed with Extreme Angler, and that was November 4th, I think, when we did that, and launched out of 12th Street. I mean, the fish in one drift, we were getting anywhere from 4 to 6, 7 fish a drift. Carl, that is the host of the show, he was just like in awe. He just could not believe that I stopped the boat, the guy didn't even have the camera out of the box, and I already was like, "Get it," and he was like, "Well, you can't fish it." I'm like, "I already got one." I mean, it was that pathetic. Once you use some of this knowledge of mine to steer you in the direction, you'll find that you're going to catch a lot more fish. So back on spring again, ball head. I like the paddle tails. It's not like the finesse doesn't work, but I like the ball head. It just gives you a slower fall with that treble hook. Okay. Any questions on spring at all? Everybody good? Okay, so now we'll run into the summer patterns of these walleyes. In the summer, I consider when I change from a ball head about 60 degrees, I'll start switching up. And again, it's about metabolism of any type of species of fish. That's why when when Joel's out there trolling for salmon, he's finding those thermoclines where it's a different temperature of water, and that's where those salmon are, and he's running his cannonballs through there. It's very similar in the river. When that water warms up to 60, they're getting more active. Again, I'm still looking at the American side, because that's where the warmer water is. And they'll hold there to about probably close to 70-degree water, and then that's when I'll start going over to the deeper holes that are up to 75 foot deep. And they'll stage in those holes all the way till ice happens again in December or whenever everybody gives up. I kind of like when bow season hits because everybody's gone and I get it all. But that's when I'll go to these more slender heads, like this Mark Custom jig head here. It's slender and long, but when you give it a little twitch, it's jumping. It's jumping. It's more a reaction bait. I'm not just picking it up and dropping it down. You're battling high currents out there, so your boat is round and round, and you get yachts, and Joe Blow wants to rip up next to you. It's definitely a frustrating situation, but you can keep a lot better control, and I really like these new jig heads that are out. Kind of looks like a teardrop. That cuts the current a lot better. I could take you guys out, and if I went with the narrow one and you had a ball one, the same color of lure, I'll beat you 10, 12 to 1. I mean, it just is what it is. Because this is cutting the current. And your line will be way back here on a 45-degree angle where I'm straight up and down. Always try to, where your motor's located, or even in the back of the motor area in the back of your boat, where the trolling motor is, I try to stay, even if I'm with my buddies, I'll have him stand here, and here's the troll motor. You can keep better. If they're back there by my 21 feet back, that boat's swinging back and forth like this, that's no good. They're gonna have a harder time keeping vertical. But you can stay vertical a lot better if you go with these narrower jig heads. There's a wide variety of them out there on the market, colored ones, everything under the rainbow.
3/4 ounce.
3/4 ounce always. Always 3/4 ounce I use. Things that you'll see on, again, like that TV show I filmed, basically I'll just take a round ball head jig, I'll put it in a vise or hit it a couple times with a hammer and make it flat. It's called a kill head. I can pass this around. Obviously you know what a ball head is. I use that, and then I just take, you could use just direct lead as a color of jig head, because everybody, oh, I got chartreuse jig head, I got this jig head, purple, blah, blah, blah. I go to Ace Hardware, buy some cheap paint, taking that, set it on the concrete, bang, bang, flip it over, bang, bang, spray it a little bit of thing, hang it up. That's it. The thing that I want, that a lot of manufacturers don't do, is your hook size. Is it a 2-aught, is it a little 3-aught, is it a 4-aught? I want the big hooks. You got a lot better hooking advantage with a big hook than you do a little hook, especially when they're slashing at it. Some of these sickle hooks like Mark uses, and actually these newer jig heads here that I like, and this one seems to be about 1 ounce, which would be sweet too. You run these sickle hooks, that's fine also, because 9 times out of 10 I'm running that treble hook that you see that V's that out. So I got a main hook and then a V hook back here like that. They swat at that puppy and you'll get them every time. And again, don't reel up and then go down kind of thing. I set the hook and just give it a steady reel. Right up to the thing, flip it right in the boat. I ain't using that. Unhook it, give it to my buddy to put in a live well, and back down I go. Okay?
No wonder you catch so many fish. Everybody else is doing the other stuff. Putting fish in a live well.
Yeah. I just flip them right in, and if it falls off, it's no big deal, but normally you got them pretty good. Now we'll talk about above the bridge. A lot of guys, you know, Todd, how do you get them out of 75 foot of water? Or why are they there? It's right back into the kind of the understanding of salmon, where the thermocline is, boat traffic, etc. So I'll use an example, and we all know about it, on the Canadian side of north of the bridge, there's a hole at 75 foot at its max, roughly, depending on how that freighter that ran aground last year damaged it. I haven't been out there to check it. A freighter lost power and slammed into the Canadian side over there, so it probably changed that hole slightly. But basically what you have is a 30 foot here on the top of the hole, goes down to about 75 foot, and then before you get to the bridge it comes back up. In that hole there, like this, like a bowl, I'll start at that 30 foot. Again, 9 times out of 10, they'll be up here first thing in the morning before the boat traffic hits. All that fish has to do is quit paddling its fins and just drift back, and now he's at 40 foot. You get Joe Schmo ripping over her head and all their buddies getting pulled up. They let go, and now they're in that 70 foot. So it's all in light penetration too. You got high bluebird skies, that light's really penetrating that water. They're gonna wanna go deeper. Normally my magic number, as you'll see in that video, because that was filmed right out there, there's actually a couple shows. We did one in Mouth of Black River, but one out there on YouTube is out above the bridge. Normal depth would be about 45 to 55 to 60 in that area. Sometimes I'll get them all the way down to that 75 foot. That's where boat control is real particular, and that crushed head is real, comes into play big time. And the fluorocarbon line. I got buddies, man, some of these older guys that I fish with, they'll go to Power Pole or Pro braid line and try to, I'm gonna get you today, kind of deal. They cannot stay vertical and catch as much as me as I do with fluorocarbon. They go, Todd, well, this stuff's so dang expensive. Well, how bad do you want to catch fish? You want to go out there and catch 2 or 3 every day, or do you want to go out there and catch your limit every day? Fluorocarbon above the bridge is a necessity. You gotta have it. And normally I'll go with 10-pound test. 10 to 12. And then they go, well, the Power Pro, or braid. I use Power Pro because it's up here on the wall, but braid is, 1 millimeter or 1 pound test size. Why doesn't that cut the water better than 10-pound test size? Well, you gotta envision a lot of that braid soaks up water, and it just doesn't cut through the water like fluorocarbon does. I've played with this stuff for years, guys. You want fluorocarbon. Mono, it floats, you just don't have the good contact, and especially when you set the hook, you take mono, it's like doing, 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 doing. So when you set the hook, you're not gonna bury that hook deep enough to get them up. You're gonna get them halfway or a quarter way up, and you're gonna fall off because you didn't bury that hook good enough. A lot of times I'll get them right on the beak. So what they're doing is they're just coming in like that, and now I'll get them right on that tip of that beak, and they're mine every time. It's that, or they'll slap it, and you'll get them in their cheeks. I mean, obviously they're still going for it because it's like any fish. He's trying to kill it on his head, and this comes around and gets him every time. That's where that treble hook. If you guys start doing that, you're gonna find that works awesome. So okay, we're into summer months. Let's say close to 70-degree water, depending on the day. Once I find them in that hole, big part of it, I can find that, hit a waypoint, and I can stay on that school. Those guys will go out there, and I see them all the time. They'll get up there, they stop, and they want to drift all the way to the bridge. Me, I stop wherever I start at. As soon as I catch a fish and go down and there's no more fish, I'm running back up. So I'll go zoop, 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 get my limit, and I'm out of there. Where they're just, dragging meat or whatever they're doing with the crawler rig, which is fine. You're going to get a lot more gobies that way. I mean, I'm finding, even on these finesses, like in the springtime, suckers are hitting it, sheephead, catfish. Again, on YouTube, I'm out there with Carl, vertical jigging these spoons. I catch, blue about that big. I mean, it's just a monstrosity with one eye and 75 foot of water on a jigging spoon. Who would have thought? Why would you hit a jigging spoon fluttering off the bottom? You know what I mean? But they do. It shows you how aggressive they are and they want to eat. So, again, summertime, we'll get into vertical jigging spoons. Kind of cover that. I know I got to keep this going because I could talk forever. I'll run just a clip on my jigging spoons, or I'll tie direct. When I say just a clip, it's just like a swivel without the barrel swivel on there. And the reason I like that is I can change a lot of these jigging spoons a lot quicker. Some of the jigging spoons that I use, like a Hopkins spoons or the Bass Pro Shops Stratus spoon, you look at the eyelet and it's like just a drilled eyelet, so that's sharp. Well, over time of flicking this spoon, it'll snap your line. Where these CNC spoons like Joel carries, it's got a nice clasp, and sometimes I'll just tie direct to that. But I do like going with just a clip on there. It just gives it a little more action, but you got, when you're doing these spoons, you gotta be careful. When you go give it a flick, it'll wanna come back and hook your line. So that's when I'll tie direct. And the other thing I do is I go with heavy line when you vertical jig spoons. I'll go anywhere from 14 pound up to 17 pound test fluorocarbon. And the reason is it's more rigid and it has less tendency to come back and hook. Okay? Now let's say I got a jigging spoon on this bad boy and we're out there, and you can see this again on YouTube or on my Facebook page. It has a complete half-hour show on there. You stop the boat, you're pretty much, the boat's just moving with the current. You just click your bail, zit, 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 all the way to the bottom. I engage my reel and I just give it a flick about like that. Don't, I hit bottom again. Flick, don't, hit bottom again as the boat's moving. You'll go to flick it and you'll have one. And there's times out there, these jigging spoons, I can get a limit in one drift. It's that much of a reaction hit. They see this thing flutter up and it comes back down and it hits the soot, the sand, and creates a little poof or whatever. They're bam, they're on it, man. How I learned this years ago, my sales company, I travel a lot. And this is how I learned it. I was on the other side of the state, like over in Grand Haven, etc. These guys were taking these jigging spoons on a pier, out at the end of the pier, with a spinning rod, and he would open it up and he'd, as far as he could, click his bail and let that bad boy go all the way to the bottom. He'd reel down like that and he'd yank it that hard. Reel back down like that, yank it that hard. He'd do that 3-4 times and he'd pull it and he'd have a brown, a steelhead, a sucker, drums, and I was like, on what? And he opened up a kit like mine, as you see, I got a lot more now, just full of these jigging spoons. And he says, well, what happens, it rips off bottom and then it beep, 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 back down like a wounded shad or gizzard shad or whatnot. As soon as it poofs that bottom, they bury their head right in there and they get it every time. So I brought that kind of knowledge back here thinking, now how can I get these walleyes to react to that? Because that little flick, how I like to do it is I've learned so much ice fishing in a shanty, because you can see down, of how these lures react when you jig them. It's no different when you're down there in the old school perch. You can pick it up and they start, flaring up and going up after it. You just learn a lot to it. Well, this just basically just flips upside down and kind of flutters back and hits bottom. They will annihilate these bad boys. You can get some more snags with these out there above the bridge. We talked that hole, 30 foot or even 28 or whatnot, goes down to 70. Well, where that comes up, when I run all my underwater cameras and etc., where that comes up just before that bridge, that's where all them logs are going to be stacked. Because envision a big log years ago when they did lumber industry, it floated down from the lake. When they sank, they ended up back here as that hole comes up. So when I get down to where 75, 76, and then it starts coming back up, I'm reeling up and getting the heck out of there, because I know you're going to fail if you go any further. You might be all right with your crawler rigs and whatnot, so kind of semi-ride over those logs, but any of these techniques, you'll lose your stuff real quick.
How heavy are those?
These are 3/4 to 1 ounce jigging spoons, because I want heavy and contact with that lure at all times. So I'm just flick, poof, flick, poof, flick, poof. Usually after it doesn't take very long, you go to flick it and pow, boom, same thing, and then I'm steady. I'm not this and back down and all that. Normally you'll get these either right on the beak or just underneath the jaw. Again, they're going at it, and then when you go to jig it again, you get it. Really specific, it shows on that video. Because and it was live. I actually opened that bail, dropped it down as they're filming, and did about 3 jigs, and pow. And Carl was like, oh, give me one of those, and learn that technique. So, jigging spoons, color-wise, it's either chrome or brass. 8 times out of 10, I'm using chrome. 3/4 to 1 ounce. Either the CC spoons, or the Stratus or Hopkins spoons. There's a wide variety of them out there. Okay?
You ever put a Jensen egg in there?
No.
I use a spoon similar to that for ice fishing.
Yeah, ice fishing, no, hit.
Jensen egg,
Yeah.
you drop it in the mud, and they'll just bury their head in the mud looking for
Yeah,
that thing.
well, I just got back from Semco and we went over and just slaughtered them in between Georgina and Thor, but that's what we do is we drop it on the bottom and poof up that sediment and then bring up these spoons, a lot bigger. I use the Guster spoon.
Yeah.
And you bring it up like that and they just attack. It just flares them up and gets them to want to feed and eat it before their buddy Joe gets it. But out there, no, you gotta have control because of that current, man. It's trendy. When we talk boat control, I always have my bow of my boat into the wind or into the waves. So if it's an east wind, like here in the spring, a lot of it will be a west wind heading over to Canada. So my boat's always pointing to the bank so I can wave at everybody as I'm catching fish. You know, later on in the season, and we get into the summertime and that, you get these north winds or these east winds. You still want to keep your bow on your boat with it on them. Normally I'm at 3/4, if not high on my trolling motor, and just keep punching it a little bit, trying to stay vertical. I'm always chasing my line when I'm vertical jigging, especially above the bridge. The easy stuff is south of mouth Black River.
Explain that chasing line.
As I'm flicking it, or depending on what technique I am, I'm seeing what way my line is, I'm chasing it.
Okay.
I'm chasing it. I'm always chasing my line, trying to stay vertical. When you get over 30 foot of water, you gotta be vertical as much as possible. That's where, again, this fluorocarbon line and staying vertical, chasing your bait, you're gonna catch way more fish.
So your
If
bait,
that bad boy goes off like this, you're gonna get snagged.
So if you got a south wind, you're pointing your bow south, so you're going backwards. down
Yes.
the river.
So when I let off, it's no different when I'm bass fishing. If I'm pulling up on a bunch of lily pads and there's a wind in my face, and I catch a bass and let off on my trolling motor, that wind's blowing me away. It's not blowing me into the lily pads, right? So that's what you want to do. You always want to keep that bow of that boat into the wind. Now it's a lot different in these wide variety of boats they manufacture. Mine's a Triton, 21-foot Triton, so it sits this high out of the water. It doesn't catch the wind as much, and it's fiberglass, so it's heavy. So it doesn't move my boat as much as a 16-foot aluminum that sits this high out of the water with an underpowered trolling motor. You know, when guys ask me, Todd, what should I buy? You know, first of all, obviously what you can afford. But in regards to motors, you want the biggest trolling motor and the biggest outboard that you can max out the size of the boat. So if you have a 16-foot long, I would recommend at least a 24-volt, like 80-pound thrust trolling motor. You're better off having enough power than not enough. I see way too many guys that buy these package deals and put a 20-horse Mercury on a 16-foot boat with a 12-volt trolling motor on there and cheap electronics. You're just not going to do it. The outboard, that's here nor there because it's how fast you want to get out there. The electronics and trolling motors are critical. You got to have that power to move around. If you guys seen how my bass boat reacts compared to anybody else because of the weight and how low it is, it's just night and day. It's night and day. So keep your bow into the wind and you'll have a lot better boat control on that. And any questions on boat control?
you're out there in the morning, like real early in the morning,
Yeah.
there's really no wind, so you're just playing with the current, and that's all.
Just playing with the current and following my line of how it's reacting. If it's swirling, you know, obviously it's not swirling around, but you still have 30-foot yachts and ships going by or whatnot. Brian Martin does a lot of videos in the river. When these ships go by and those start sucking that water like you see on the shore, you'd be amazed on how those fish turn on. They just, because it's sucking them out and they're like, I'm gonna feed. So a lot of times, I'll win the dollar of the day by when a freighter walleye goes by. You know, a freighter goes by and I catch that walleye. It just turns them on.
I've noticed that whipping.
Pardon me?
I noticed
Yeah,
that whipping when you're
yeah,
out
that
there.
happens a lot. Are we good on time so far?
You're fine. You're fine.
Okay.
That's where the fall is so good. I really try to promote the fall. It never, if you bow hunt, don't want to go walleye fishing, but you can pick your spot. Pleasure boaters are done, and there's half dozen guys out there.
And those fish put on that feed bag, again, that film, that show we did, it was icy at the 12th Street ramp in the morning. And it was November 4th or 7th, it was right in that area. I mean, the stuff was starting to freeze. You look at the parking lot, I was the only vehicle in there.
Most guys are going deer hunting.
Everybody's deer hunting.
Right there in the rut.
I was there too.
In your video, actually, I.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, oh, okay.
So,
Yeah, there was a few guys that were out there. Some of my buddies were running around because we had to jump in their boat to get back views of filming a show is more difficult. What you guys think, it just takes a lot to do that. 10 hours to get a half-hour show, you know, that kind of deal. Because there's still a lot of editing on that. When we get into back on the summer and the fall pattern, that's when I'm going with the finesse for sure. It's a lot slender profile, wide variety of colors. They go tidal, you know, what's the best color? I always find a natural color out in that clear water is what you want. The other thing, the biggest thing is you want these narrow jig heads, man. I see guys out there with them ball heads and they just cannot stay vertical like you can with these narrow heads. They cut the water a lot better. And you're gonna find that you're gonna be more vertical all the way around.
Now, those different tails, how critical is hook alignment to, like your tail configuration?
Yeah, and that's a good question. I do try to keep it straight as possible. You know, because you just want that to come up and down, or I'll give it a little snap. So, because again, if you remember when I talked about it, these narrower heads, when you go and give it a snap, it shoots to the side, shoots to the side. Not too much, because I'm not like this. I'm just kind of flick, giving it a little flick. So when that jumps out, they hit it. Because again, you look at those videos that are on my Facebook page, them walleyes always got buddies, and there'll be 10, 20 of them all just right there. Well, you can imagine, just like perch fishing with ice. Joe, you know, their buddy wants it, no, I got it, and they're all just attack. That's where the spoon really shines, because they just want that. They think it's a dying shad fluttering down. And as long as you keep constant bottom contact as you're drifting along, that's why that bait caster, I can click that button a little bit, let out a foot or two, click, flick. Because as you're drifting and not far, you're going from 30 to 75 foot. Somewhere in between there is where they're going to be staged. Normally 45 to 55 foot, they'll be just stacked like cordwood on this thing. So that's where I'll put a waypoint in and shorten my drifts and just bang, 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 and go from there.
How big is that hole?
It's large.
Large?
Yeah, it'll run from the red buoy all the way in close to shore.
It's getting bigger every year.
And it's getting bigger every year because that ship just ran aground and whatnot. Other guys go, well, Ty, you know what? When you're going up that river, there's reasons why those buoys are there. There's a red and a green buoy that's marking the channel. I mean, that's where the ships are. That's where it's going from 20 foot to into the channel to 35, 40. I always try to stay on that edge. They're either on the bottom of that drop, somewhere in the middle of that drop, or on the top of that drop.
Is that 70-foot hole outside of the red, or is it inside the red?
It's inside the red, in between the red and Canadian shoreline, excuse me. If you had mapping,
water?
yeah, it's
Yes.
Canadian water. If you had mapping, you would see that on that chip.
Okay.
The one thing you definitely want to do, if you cross that river, you better call into customs because they will hang you. They will impound your boat and it's a $1,000 fine and you ain't getting your boat back and you're getting extradited back. They are not playing games.
And then basically, another question, 3/4 is basically all your weight here at this one.
Yeah, I wouldn't go less than 3/4.
Okay. Even down like in Detroit River?
Well, Detroit River is a little bit, you have a less current, but I still go heavy, man.
'Cause you get
I want to stay vertical and do bottom. A lot of guys say, well, I'm gonna, you know, go real super light and this, that, and the other, and colors and all that. Myself, I find that it doesn't play a factor.
The
Now, if it
Detroit,
was crystal clear water and 10 foot or something like that, yeah, then I would downsize my line and my baits. But dirty water like that, you want a heavier weight to keep better contact with the bottom.
Detroit River guys that come up here to fish struggle for a little bit.
Because they're
The
using
current-
too light a
The
weight.
current's zipping.
We struggle.
You're not a better fisherman trying to use a half-ounce jig head. It's not, you're gonna spin your wheels.
Yeah. And the guys right now catching them, they're down Marine City. I mean, I'm not gonna give you your exact spot, but you can find it. If you launch right out of Marine City at that DNR launch and went a little bit north, there's a deep hole in there, just like on the Canadian side. And the benefit to that's kind of the situation of Black River. If they see that ice coming, they can tuck it back and get the hell out of Dodge. You don't wanna get stuck out in that river with ice flows. You're gonna be downstream trying to put your boat and get a trailer up here to get it. That's why Black River is a little sweet, because you can just pop right in there and that's an eddy. So a lot of the ice comes around that corner and heads over to Canada. Back in the summer and fall patterns above the bridge, boat traffic is a big plays a big effect. And even in the spring, I see guys that just kind of chokes me, but I don't say it too much. If I'm cruising down that thing, the guy, he runs right through everybody, right up that sucking river, you know, right where all the fish are, or he'll hug the shore. You gotta show a little respect. You run that boat over 20 foot of water over a fish, you're gonna scatter them. Besides peeing off a bunch of guys. Take your time without throwing huge waves. Try to go around and just get, you know, in line and like that. I see guys a lot of times they'll run right up through everybody, man. You know, we all got to get along, but you will startle that school and make them scatter. Detroit River down there is chaos. I mean, there'll be this many. If we all had a boat right now, we'd be in about this same general area. That's how pathetic that is. Now, guys, I got them coming up here to, besides to help Joel and the economy up here, and they see it and they go, God, this is paradise. So again, in the summer and fall, boat traffic plays a big factor, especially above the bridge in that hole. That's what, again, in the morning, they'll be up in that 30-foot light penetration boat traffic. They'll pull off into that deeper water, and you'll see that video on YouTube or Facebook. It's an awesome video. I mean, I'm doing the same techniques I'm talking about. That's what is on that video. Crushing the head, different colors that we use, and how we're doing it. And again, where the buoys are placed, they're there for a reason. That was where the channel is. On the Canadian side, you come off the Canadian side above the bridge, you have that deep hole. It comes up by that red buoy, that's a high spot. Then it goes back into a channel, goes to the green buoy on the American side, and then it feathers off slightly into a beach, coming up to Lakeside Beach. Late spring into summer, they're on the American side. Once that water gets close to 70, 65, 70 degrees, they're gone. They'll move into that deeper hole because of thermoclines and etc. Then they change into what they're eating. You know, they're eating smelt minnows right now, but as you guys have probably seen, boy, they're eating a lot of gobies. And that's all them fish out there. They want those gobies, so that's where I'll start imitating gobies more. And they want it, and that's what they want. So, other than that, see, we did boat control, my poles, my lines, different kind of reels. Your jigging cadence is very important. Springtime, I'm just barely picking it up, barely picking it up. Where the summertime, I'm kind of giving it a flick, letting it dart off with the different styles of heads. Paddle tails in the springtime, over the finesse. Colors, I like going natural, unless we're in the dirtier water, then I'll go with like bubble gums, or your sharp, you know, something real bright like that. This is a very good color here with this light pink. And as you see, this is one of my boxes. Pretty much all of it's natural colors. There's a few that aren't for the springtime. Now let's say real quick before I finish up here, above the bridge, if I see that it's dirty water and there's a major mud line, I stay on that mud line. Because all them walleyes will be right on that edge, just like an ambush, and they'll shoot out and nail you every time. And it just puts them in a more general area, and I can catch them even quicker. So if you see that dirty water line, try to stay on that clean, right on that edge. It's no different, and I'll just throw a little bit of bass here. In the river, with these smallmouth, they're sight-feeding fish. 9 times out of 10, the water's clear. When that water goes in pukey mud, I might as well run to Erie, because they're just not going to bite. They just can't see it, and they're so used to being in so clean water, they'll just lay on bottom and go, what the heck? So if you can find that mud line above the bridge when we have a blow or a storm, it positions them even better. So, any other questions?
What about going further down St. Clair Pine River? Do you fish that much? Or?
Oh yeah, I'm out all the time, but 3-4 times a week. But I all the way from Fawn Island. There's holes all along there, the mouth of the North Channels and stuff like that. That's where these holes come into effect again, where it's 30 foot. It goes to shit. There's one hole down there. I think where they're catching right now, it's like 90. And you get deep. And those fish will be somewhere between that, let's say 30 and 90. If you can figure that out, that's where you shorten your drifts up and you'll catch them every.
There's more summertime, right?
No, that's right now.
Right now. Sturgeon
Right now. That's right now and through the summer. But it's all, once you figure out these seasonal patterns like I have, and I didn't have seminars to go to when I did it, but I just put in a lot of time and figure out where they're located. They're gonna be on the on the American side, Black River and whatnot, and Lakeside Beach to about 60, 65-degree water temp. And then all of a sudden they're gone and they're gonna be over there on that Canadian side in that deep hole. And it's all because of water temperature and where the bait is. It's easy as that, guys. Fluorocarbon line, 7-foot rod, spinning reel, manually close it, try to stay vertical. You need a powerful, that you can, trolling motor on your boat. So you can bzz, bzz. I don't care if it's even a hand model. That's what you need. Biggest mistake guys make.
Oh, by Lexington, is there jigging areas out that way or anything?